One of the things I noted down, but I couldn't work it in. Um, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say what khaba min hamala zulma, when those in the hereafter who carry an injustice, they have lost. And this is why the thing that you must shed in your life on this earth, injustice is in the same way that Allah promises justice in the hereafter. This is because injustice is an anathema to the Lord. It is the most, among the most reprehensible, and so among the most reprehensible and disliked things. To achieve justice at a social level is one thing. It's core to the message of Surah Taha. But at the individual level, shed as much injustice in your lifetime as possible. You cannot shed the injustices you've committed in your lifetime unless you are aware of them. And you are not going to be aware of the injustices that you've committed in your lifetime unless you have moral clarity, because your ego will always do what Surah Taha exactly told you not to do, and that is give you some self-serving, self-righteous discourse as to why you were justified in whatever wrongdoing you've committed. The only thing that guards you against this is the type of honesty and transparency that allows you to recognize, yes, I have been unjust. And injustice towards others is worse than an injustice towards yourself. Because every injustice towards others is also an injustice towards God and also an injustice towards yourself. But no, not all injustices towards yourself is an injustice towards others. So injustice towards others is the worst type of injustice. And the idea of, and that's why I've said this before and I keep saying it, the idea that injustice would be part of the course or the way of life among Muslims is and it's not just a blind following of the Quran and Sunnah that was going to prevent you from committing injustice, because injustice to fight injustice at a personal level, you need transparency and piety and self-honesty. At the social level, you need the intellect, and you need accountability, and you need transparency, and you need institutions that allows you to fight injustice. Anyway, so when it comes to وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ حَمَلَ ظُلْمًا, among the passages that is worth noting and reflecting on, first we're going to read it in Arabic. Say, إذا صرحت الفكرة وجالت في أقطار الملكوت وأسرار الجبروت وتحققت بعدم الإحاطة، رجعت عش العبودية وخضعت للحي القيوم وقد خاب وخسر من لم يبلغ إلى هذا المقام حين حمل ظلم بالميل بميل بالميل إلى بالشيء من السوى بغلبة الطبع والهوى. وأما من نهض إلى مولاه واشتغل بالأعمال التي تقربه إلى حضرته فلا يخاف ظلما ولا هضما، فإن الله يرفع العبد على قدر همته وبنعمته على قدر طاعته، وبهذا جاء الوحي والتنزيل كما قال الله تعالى إلخ إلخ. So his saying is إذا صرحت الفكرة وجالت في أقطار الملكوت وأسرار الجبروت that if you truly reflect on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah Taha, it becomes aware, and he's here referring to the idea very close to the like what Ja'far al-Sadiq radiallahu anhu says, that the soul as it goes into the physicality longs, and as it longs, it longs for transcendence, which is its nature. But unless it finds the Lord, that longing becomes as if a curse upon it rather than a blessing. For it's saying that if people think clearly, it's as if their thoughts can traverse the universe and can go through all the possibilities, and then they realize that they are not self-sufficient. That the idea in our modern language of the human Superman, the human Godhead, huh?
The Ubermensch.
The Ubermensch. Are you saying Ubermensch? Yeah, the German. Yeah, because that's the sort of the Ubermensch in German Nietzschean philosophy is an absolute fallacy, and it's a curse. And then it returns with humility to figuring out its position vis-a-vis the Lord, and how to recognize its need for God without committing injustice. So in other words, achieving justice with the commitment to God. But that in order for that to occur, human beings have to basically be vigilant in fighting الهوى وغلبة الطبع وعدم الميل بالشيء عن من سواه, so that you are vigilant in fighting whimsicalness and vigilant in fighting weakness and vigilant in literally disproportionality, in fighting disproportionality. Because otherwise, they fall in the trap of exactly what Surah Taha is warning us about. And that's the phenomena of the Pharaoh. The phenomena of the Pharaoh who dominates everything, preserves an elite that has the status of virtual gods, while the masses are left with nothing but one choice, and that's blind obedience. And if they disobey, they get crushed. As the Pharaoh tells the sorcerers or the magicians, you believed without me giving you permission? remarkable. That's why the Quran inspired a people to build a civilization. Okay. Now I'm done.
Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I have no words to express how incredible this was. I see how hard the Sheikh prepares, and he always questions like whether he did a good job or will do a good job, and usually believes he doesn't do a good job, because after this he'll start thinking about all the different things he could have done or said differently. And I always try to tell him what you did is incredible and amazing, and I hope you will believe that, because it really, really was. So, alhamdulillah, first I want to ask, what is the dhikr for the surah?
I should have mentioned that. Yeah, and wait, hold on. Where is it? It's not. Hold on. Okay, go on. I'll find it. I'll tell you in a second. Because I know it.
Well, I hope I can exercise moderator. I hate saying moderator privilege. That's not really right. That's not nice. But I hope I can ask a question that really stuck out to me when you said you would cover it if we had time, and I'm hoping that we can cover it, which is, what is the difference in the 10 Commandments between the Islamic version and the biblical version?
Okay.
Is that its own halakha?
Okay, postpone that a little bit. Let's see.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have time. Let's see if there are any easier questions or shorter questions.
I have an easy one.
Okay, come on, Lily.
Where is it?
Okay, so
The dhikr is 130.
130.
Yeah. فاصبر على ما يقولون وسبح بحمد ربك قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل غروبها ومن آناء الليل فسبح وأطراف النهار لعلك ترضى.
Oh, was that?
130?
Wait, did you have a question, Arlene?
yeah, I did, but I thought we were gonna.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
good.
130.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So my question kind of goes off your commentary on. Well, first of all, thank you again. An incredible halakha. I have a lot of comments and questions, but I'll try to limit this one. So on verse 124, when you're discussing those who turn away from the remembrance of Allah, and you specifically bring up the comment that one cannot pretend to have a good relationship with Allah. For example, they'll say, "Oh Allah, I trust you," but then their actions and everything they say shows otherwise. So subhanAllah, it's really interesting, because today I've met a lot of heritage Muslims like this, and actually today I was talking to a friend of a friend about this, who was telling me that, you know, he sins, he goes out, does whatever, and then he says that he doesn't want to pray because he feels two-faced. So he's able to acknowledge on one hand that he is, committing these sins and forgetting to remember Allah, but then on the other hand, he knows that he should be, doing the good and praying. But he says what stops him is the fact that he feels like a hypocrite. So what would you say that this surah and just anything else would say directly to someone like this?
Question.
If this was my child, I've always told my children that whatever you do, don't give up on prayer, because prayer is the umbilical cord that connects you to God. Once you give up on prayer, then but for the grace of God, unless you're very lucky and God still wants to extend you a rope, But at least prayer is the possibility that your conscience would come back to life. Um, but you know what I would tell someone like that is, you know, if if clearly you're worried about being a hypocrite, then you know that there is a God, and that you know that you are going to be held to account for what you do. And whatever pleasures you are getting from sinning, is it really worth it? I mean, think of how all around you people are, their opportunity, their chance runs up, and not just in terms of death, but even in crippling health conditions, even in terms of disasters, and it it's 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 mind numbing when you think that, you know, when someone says I'm just too weak, I can't resist, um, then obviously look at the process that leads to your weakness. Look at the company you keep. Look at the space that you exist in. The ways that you fail to protect your space. Change the circumstances of your life. Whether, you know, no job, no school, no friendship, no whatever material circumstance are worth the bill that you're going to have to pay in the year after. But you know, as to the technicality of the should they pray, I would say yeah, they should continue praying. At least there's some chance. But I'm always, you know, because I've seen, I've now been around long enough to see people like that, who've been exactly like that. And then, you know, I've known people who, I knew a new guy who was exactly like this, precisely like this. And then one night he was coming back after drinking with his friends in a bar, and they got into a car accident, and he became paralyzed from the waist down. And just, you know, I'll never forget visiting him in the hospital, and the tears and the crying, and pray for me and ask God to forgive me, and if only Allah would give me my, and he, I don't, I mean, I've lost contact with him. The last time I've been in contact with him, or he's been in contact with me, he never regained his, you know, when you live long enough and you've experienced stuff, you don't know how to feel about this anymore, except just, I knew another guy who same thing, and driving back from somewhere, and he just got in an accident and died. You know, I can just imagine. They say that he was alive until in the ambulance, but died shortly after arriving in the hospital. You know, I could just imagine what his thought process must have been in the ambulance. I knew another guy who was like that and died in one of the planes on 9/11. He was on the plane that crashed, that was supposed to reach the White House and crashed. He was on that plane. You know, I can imagine what his thought process must have been. So, you know, I don't know. Human beings are strange. they're strange. Life is so fragile, and all pleasures are so passing. There's, all the fun that you have in your 20s or whatnot, it's gone. Nothing remains of it. And when you think back, it's all so passing. It's nothing.
Ready for my question?
Oh, about the, can I cheat something? Can I see? Is this Muhammad Asad?
Yeah.
Can I?
This is only one of the three. Taha.
Yeah, just.
It's only just
I want to see if there's a fast way I can do this.
Shortcut? What is that word we
That
say?
was a good one.
Which one?
The game.
Jinx?
Not Jinx,
Oh,
but
Contact?
Contact.
Oh my god. That's a good one.
That game we used to play. That
What?
that I'm itching to play. No, it's okay.
I still
I'm
have my
just
word.
joking.
We'll contact on it later.
Okay, ask something else as I'm checking to see if.
All right. Who else has a question, please?
What are you gonna ask? It's just about the opposites. You mentioned something about Adam, and then something about opposites that I didn't quite catch.
You want him to repeat that?
Or did he
the
hear
idea?
that?
Oh, Rami's asking about the concept of opposites, that you said something about Adam. I mean,
Yeah.
And I'll add to his question, is it related to Satan and Adam being cast onto earth as opposites, and then opposites
is
resulting?
it related to Satan and Adam being cast onto earth as opposites?
Yeah, and the actually one is the way that it connects is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Adam that Satan is an enemy. But up to that point, Adam has not exercised the power of choice. Once the power of choice was exercised, then you have necessarily delved into the realm of opposites, because it is, you cannot have light without the absence of light. You cannot have a knowledge without the absence of knowledge. You cannot have anything without its opposite, which is its absence. So once that realm of choice was invoked, although Adam was forgiven, the nature of life on earth is a life of choices between something and its absence, something and its opposite. And that's the point I was making, is that Muslim theologians often point that the nature of life on of earth is that you are when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we've offered human beings the responsibility, وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا, in Surah Taha, that, and we found that they were لَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا is literally like they did not have the strength of endurance. The strength of endurance is to and in this context, is to accept their position as derivative of divinity without exercising, like basically like angels, without exercising the power of choice, without, in a sense, without what is the word, ambition, because the tree which they are, was Satan tempts them with, is the tree of ambition. Mulkun la yafna. Or, you know, that you, if you eat from this tree, you will have unlimited power and sovereignty and so on. And so by their nature, human beings can soar to great heights, but can also fall to depths, that unimaginable depths. And it all is contingent on this issue of choice. Now, of course, we can get into a debate whether this is all, you know, whether this whole narrative is metaphorical or not. But the point is that choice delves in the realm of opposites. That's the nature of, and that is critical to moral reflection itself. As a philosophical premises for how you understand what is good and what is not good, husn and qubh, and so on. That's the point. I have a vague memory but I'm not sure if I'm wait. Do you remember reading something in Muhammad Asad about the Ten Commandments?
He definitely will, because he's often comparing with.
But yeah, I
But I
don't.
don't in Taha.
But
I'm not sure if it's in Taha.
Yeah,
He does reference the difference.
maybe I was just trying to cheat and see if he just, you know, but he might not. But anyway, hold on.
God does not want you to cheat.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not cheat.
Yeah, thou shalt not cheat is one of them.
Yeah.
So that means that there was elements of causality in this dimension, like that realm, right? Because in essence, that means then.
Is it- okay, go
but
on,
for
go on.
disobedience, then.
Okay, anyone else have a question in the meantime?
I guess a follow-up, a brief follow-up. A brief follow-up to the previous discussion is then, if causality plays a role in this story, then does it make sense that the necessity of hell came then from Adam's disobedience in a way, and the idea of accountability came from this point? I mean, I don't want. What's uncomfortable about it is it feels very original sin-y kind of, but at the same time.
No, you
No.
see, you know, this goes into this whole discussion as to whether you know the whether Allah from the very beginning knew that Allah created Adam and Eve for earth, and that whether, you know, option A are those who say that Allah created Adam and Eve for earth, but knew that they had to go through this test and fail, and Allah knew that they would fail. So for those who say and I know that this is not very popular in modern Islam, but anyway, um, this whole thing about Adam and Eve, it and the being tempted by Satan and all of that, that this is all metaphorical, that it is not actual physical, and for that it's all conveyed for to get a point to us about our amana, that because you get into these debates about Allah offering the amana to the heavens and the earth, and they refuse to carry it, and elsewhere as we will see in the Quran that there are parts of the Quran which basically say that Allah created human beings to be khulafa fil ard, to inherit the earth. Some theologians, as a way out, say, well, the Jannah of Adam and Eve was actually on earth. And that is similar to a biblical solution, because a lot of Christian theologians sort of said the same thing. But it's easier for me to accept a metaphorical explanation than to accept the idea that heaven was on earth. Some even go as far as like locate where heaven was on earth. Like in Abyssinia, mostly. So it gets us into whether we don't. I think anyone that speculates as to when precisely Allah created heaven and hell, that's exactly speculation. We don't know, because we don't have any, and we don't really understand even the nature of heaven and hell, except that we only experience, and this is, we talk about this inshallah in Surah Al-Naml, we experience reality from the perspective of an ant. Imagine if an ant tried to explain the law from the perspective of an ant in an infinitely vast universe, which we experience from this small spot that we call planet Earth. Humility of accepting that what we can explain is rather very limited, i.e. the 5% of material reality that is occupied by material reality, 5% of space that's occupied by material reality, and 95%, antimatter, dark matter, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Go on. I haven't given up yet.
Should we keep asking?
Do you have a question?
Or be egalitarian. Well, okay. If it's anywhere,
It's okay, Rami. Why don't you?
it,
Okay.
okay. So it's not. Ahmad Asad. It's not. No, it's not. Darn.
If I get the big version.
No, I'm pretty sure it's. I'm not gonna be able to cheat. I'm gonna. You're not gonna let this go, so I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to give you find the answer and give it to you.
Do you want Rami to go first?
Well, I might not be able to find it right now. I might have to come back to it on like another night.
You can do it at the reflection session.
Because,
have it recorded.
because we,
that's
there's
right.
like there are 10 commandments. I mean, it's not just, you know. the-
Have a khutbah on it.
Yeah, we might need
Oh,
the
yeah.
khutbah, you could do a khutbah on it.
That's a great idea.
oh, there is actually.
Likes that idea.
I like that.
Okay.
It's like leftovers.
Uh,
What do we have here?
okay, so go on.
Okay, go for it, Ryan.
Okay. So, when you were discussing the issue of how, you know, the Pharaoh uses magic and sihr, and it sparked a lot of thoughts, because, I mean, both Sayyidina Musa and the Prophet ﷺ are accused of sihr, right? And in Surah Al-Muddathir, they accuse the Prophet ﷺ of engaging in sihr. And the idea of sihr as this as an instrument that's used to misrepresent reality, or misrepresent the truth, right? Like the Quran is the haqq, and it's in many senses like the antithesis of what sihr is supposed to be. The thoughts that I'm having is a little bit jumbled. Hopefully it'll become more coherent, or you can bring some coherence to it. But what I was thinking is like how power tries to use sihr, and this is like the mystification of power, in order to promote itself, bolster itself, and, you know, enforce itself. And then kind of going back to like a lot of what we've discussed throughout the project thus far, how Shaitan, you know, very much like in Risalat Iblis, his goal sometimes, if it's not to make you commit, you know, major sins or disbelieve in God, it's to make you misrepresent, it's to misrepresent the truth to you, right? To occlude things, to use smoke and mirrors, and in that way, like, there is a sense in which individuals can use revelation as a form of sihr. And that's what the Fara'ina of today do, essentially. They surround themselves with the priests that are engaging in these misrepresentations and, you know, misrepresenting the Quran and using essentially as a way to introduce mystification and really turn it into a form of sihr, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, what's very interesting is that this is something that even in the Islamic civilization, I mean, it plagued the Amorites when they tried to call themselves Khulafa'ullah, God's Khalifas. I mean, they were insisting on the mystification of power and the resistance to the label of Khulafa'ullah, and even resistance to the idea of Khalifat Rasulullah as Khalifa in Tashri'ah, and all the pietistic narratives that then Muslim scholars attributed to Al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, because the remarkable thing about a lot of the narratives around the Khulafa al-Rashidun and Umar bin Abdul Aziz as a potential fifth is that power with them is very demystified. I mean, if you look at all the narratives, whether they're historical or not, the point is that they are leaders of the people, but they're one of the people, and that's always how they're narrated. Is that they are more than willing to just eat with the people, sleep with the people, be very humble, no mystifications and I think that the construction of that memory was constructed, whether historical or not, as a direct response to the tendency to mystify power. But absolutely, one of the biggest corruptions is then when you use the Islamic revelation to mystify power and to do what we see the shuyukh. I mean, when the Imam of Al-Haramain sits there and then says that under the leadership of Mohammed bin Salman and Trump, because that's what's his khutbah, that under the leadership of Mohammed bin Salman and Trump, they are going to lead the world towards. I mean, when you are told that according to Sharia, even if the ruler fornicates or commits adultery on public TV every day for 20 minutes, you can't object. As another famous Saudi jurist said, or where you are told you have no right to question Hayat al-Tarfih or to be what the Azhari sheikhs are doing these days was, it is haram to talk about justice, to question the ruler. It's haram to say limits on terms. It's haram to say why isn't there transparency. It's haram to they become the magicians of the Pharaoh. And the fact that they do it in Islam's name, I think, is a bigger sin than those who did it in the Pharaoh's name. And from a theological perspective, it's in the same promise that Allah gives to Bani Israel, when Allah warns them that if they don't uphold the covenant, that Allah will repeatedly cause their temple to fall, applies to us. I mean, when you use Islam to perform the theatrics of the Pharaoh, how can anyone say that Allah is going to bless that? How can anyone say that Allah is going to somehow accept that as? I mean, when theologically, again, when you have so many so-called Muslim scholars all over, in Saudi, in Egypt, I've heard it now from Saudi, Egypt, Syria, Emirat, Libya, some scholars from Libya. I've even heard it, unfortunately, from a scholar from Morocco, that tell you it's haram to talk about the genocide against Muslims in China, because that should be left to our leaders. And if our leaders tell us there is nothing to object or protest about, then that should be conclusive. That should be the end of it. And people give khutbahs about this. They give khutbahs. I mean, Jum'ah, the entire khutbah is to tell you, don't you dare ask questions about what's happening to Muslims in China, because our leader said this is legitimate, this is And lest you think that this is something that just happened overseas, we have this here in the U.S. Same thing. To me, that's it's a complete negation of the Islamic message. There's nothing left of Islam. The fact that they pray and fast is a technicality. The fact that they pray and fast is a technicality. I don't care if they wear hijab, I don't care if they pray, I don't care if they fast, I don't care. It's a mere, the essence, the ruh of the deen, the spirit of the religion has been taken away. What's left? Just outer appearances? I'm gonna have to look for it because there's a passage I'm looking for that just lays it out really nicely.
Okay. Khutbah?
We're a troublemaker, that's right.
Okay. Anybody else? Sure. Okay. So just some nice comment. So I wonder if Allah also has this conversation with Musa about his staff as a symbolism too, to have Musa acknowledge it is something he leans on, but that Allah asks him to throw it away, almost like a forceful physical dramatization to effect a realization that with Allah to lean on, there is no actual real need for anything else to rely on. All of those reliances are temporary tools and part of the illusions in our temporal world.
Now this is really interesting. I haven't thought of that, but yeah, that's very interesting.
Okay. Sam, is it also true that Umar ibn al-Khattab converted to Islam after hearing the beginning of this surah?
Yes, the surah, the narratives about his conversion is that his sister was reading the surah. His sister and her brother, and her husband, were reading Surah Taha. And the Arabic is just. And don't ask, and before you ask an Arab, because I've noticed, ask an Arab who actually knows Arabic, that reads pre-Islamic poetry and that reads early Islamic poetry, and that so they can understand the specialness of the language. I see how Arabs talk to each other nowadays on social media, and it makes me want to throw up. I don't know. They speak like they write slang. It wasn't even this bad when I was younger. At least you were supposed to write your letters in proper classic. If you write a letter to your mother or father, you write in proper classical language. But no longer. Arabs now just write slang, and they're. It's a different language. But yes, the beauty literally hurts. If once you recognize beauty in language, there's some language that is so beautiful it hurts, and the beauty of the Quran is like that.
Okay, an incredible halakha once again. I am overwhelmed with thoughts. I cannot help but notice that there are two places where the words of blowing away with a blast, nasfan, is repeated twice, 95 and then 107, thinking that Allah does not show repetition of such words without reason. Would you have an idea or opinion about this?
Since the way I remember things is to recite them in order, so let me look it up. You said 95?
95 and 107.
It might be 96.
So walat li nafsi. that okay. So كذلك سولتني نفسي and 107.
Oh, hang on. Let me put the volume on. Go ahead, Enjin.
I think it was 97 and 105.
Oh, 97 and 105.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, so one. Oh, ينسفها ربي نسفك. Okay, well, what? Just as a 90. You said 97.
97 and 105.
نسفها في اليوم نسفة. Oh, you're oh no, نسفها نسفة. Well, nesf, it derived from the word safa, and safa is to undo something. So and from that same word is derived the word safaha, like stupidity or silliness, is when you undo rationality or reason. That's the safaha. Or the word safih, someone who is an idiot. It's someone who has undone their nationality. So 97, when Moses says that I will destroy لننسفه في اليم نسفا, I will destroy that golden cow before your eyes. The later reference in 105 is about the mountains and the hereafter, and that Allah, what will happen to the mountains, that Allah ينسفها نسفا. Because the word nasf it's a common, often used, it's like the word haya or the word zilzal, or it's an often common used term in Arabic. I think in each place it has to be taken in context, and in one place Moses is referring to the destruction of the and the second is Allah saying, referring to the destruction of the mountains. The only connection that is clearly there, I think, is that the theme of what you think is a lasting, dependable reality and its destructibility. When one of the, I don't remember where I read this, but one of the sources that I've read a long time ago was talking about that the reason that Allah consistently refers to how, one part Allah talks about the mountains moving like clouds, another part talks about the mountains becoming like threaded cotton, another part Allah talks about the mountains being blown away, is that Allah is saying that they think about what you consider to be permanent reality, like those who worship the cow, the golden calf. There is no reason to believe that the earth will cease to be in the hereafter. But what Allah does tell us is that the reality of the earth, as you've experienced it, will be transformed. Transformed to what? We don't know. That's the but it's not, I mean, the word nasf is not unusual in Arabic usage.
Okay, that was incredible. Thank you very much. I wonder how we should relate to the body given its quote-unquote shadow status. I was very disembodied in my younger days, but now use my physical feelings as a way to understand when I am grounded, when I am comfortable, and I hope and pray when I'm following a light-filled path and when I am not. denial of the body feels a bit occidental, like I think, therefore I am. Thinking and ignoring how I feel in my body is really what gets me in trouble.
No, you don't. No, you don't deny what your body feels. That's not the Islamic path. And what Jafar Sadiq is not. Jafar Sadiq is explaining the longing of the soul, and the body is not. I mean, I just picked a small passage. The body is not in itself the shadow. It is how you use the body that could become a shadow or not a shadow. In Islam, if you are at equilibrium with your body, the body will aid the soul rather than fight with the soul, and the soul will aid the body. This is why if you've ever met a true Sufi master, you will find that they live extremely healthy lives, that they'll be 80 years old and 90 years old, and they walk around like they're 20 or 30 years old. They live very long lives. They're very healthy because they've achieved absolute balance and equilibrium between body and mind. One feeds the other. It's because I'm a very bad example that my body is not like that. So don't take me as an example. Take those who are.
We get lots of messages about people who really are concerned about your Diet Coke consumption. So, just to say,
Yeah,
Do whatever you want, Chef.
Mind your business.
Let them live. We all need a
Thank you,
bite.
Jenna.
Chug them.
Jenna says, chug 'em,
whatever you want.
whatever makes you happy, Sheikh. She's a woman after my heart.
So few vices in this life. Leave them alone.
Yeah, seriously.
I have my vices, and I'm not gonna make excuses.
You try staying up all night without Coke.
It's just I've read.
this is try staying up all night without Coke.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sufi masters know when to close the book and stop reading and go to bed. And they also know when to stop buying books so they don't bankrupt the family. Alhamdulillah, Allah has not given me this wisdom. I don't know how to stop buying books. I don't know when to stop reading and go to bed. And because I don't know when to stop reading and go to bed, I don't know when to stop drinking Coke because it has caffeine. And
You don't like the taste of water.
and I don't know what happened. Maybe my mother dropped me on my head or something, but I can't stand water. I'm convinced that water has a taste, and my wife has given me all type of bottled water that is very expensive, but all water tastes horrible. Water tastes horrible.
Even
So-
sparkling with flavor. I've given him everything. So he likes sparkling. We've tried flavor
tried the new
with
flavor?
juice. Yeah.
And I'll tell you,
situation
Coke
after, like,
Coke
16
tickles the throat, and I love my throat being tickled. That soda tickles. It's so
Sparkling water
amazing.
has the same effect.
Even this.
But it
I-
tastes.
I-
It's the
it's
taste
like-
is horrible.
Like a walking miracle. Imagine if the only thing you drank, like from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, is Diet Coke. Could you
Drink any
survive?
water at all.
No.
Are you gonna start too?
So
No,
just-
I'm not. I'm not
for you.
saying. I'm just saying that's incredible.
He's a walking miracle.
Wow.
Just think about that.
I mean, I
from Allah.
do istighfar night and day, but I'm fully aware that I am a sinner against my body, and I just beg Allah all the time for long periods every day to forgive me and not have my body testify against me in the hereafter, because I wouldn't be able to handle it. And I'm very scared of the testimony my body would give against me, and I keep apologizing to my body all the time and saying, please, please don't testify against me, please, you know. I am sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so flawed, I am sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have these sessions. You know, if you were spy, I'm sure like the FBI or CIA who probably have cameras all over the house and spying, they probably think I'm insane because I talk to my body every night and keep crying and saying I'm sorry. And they probably say this guy is loony. You know, who's he talking to? But yeah, I am talking to my body, guys. You know, yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Allah is most forgiving. And on that note, thank you so much again for an incredible session, and we'll see you Tuesday, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, don't drink Coke.
That was the takeaway.
Yes, don't drink Coke.
Have a
Surah
good
Taha
week.
is about nothing.
Rest of the weekend, inshallah.